Hello UTV Action Magazine followers, fans, and subscribers. We just took delivery of the new Polaris Pro R and the Turbo R. We wanted to do a quick walk around, show you the differences. We think the Turbo R might be a little underrated because, you know, it didn't get as much fanfare as the new 4-cylinder Pro R. So we just wanted to show you the differences and from front to back, and just let you decide which one you want to buy. What you can see right off the bat, there's a little nose hood on the Pro R, which isn't on the Turbo R. Underneath that hood is a little piece of ducting that goes back to the CVT, goes in the tunnel between the seats. All new for this car is new front end, basically. New wider A-arms, 74 inches wide, 22.25 inches of travel up front, 24 inches of travel in the back of both cars. Both cars have the same suspension, other than the longer trailing arms in the back of the Pro R, but we'll get to that later. So overall, the dimensions, in case you have a storage issue or a trailer issue, you know, especially a toy hauler deal, the Pro R 4-seater is 165 inches long with 103.5 inch wheelbase, 74 inches wide again, and 76.5 inches tall. The Turbo R is overall 157 inches long with a wheelbase of 125 inches. It's 74 inches wide and 77 inches tall. Inside the cockpit's pretty identical, except for the addition of the front diff switch that's in the Pro R. They have a front diff called Pro Performance. It's an actual locking front differential. The rest of the dash is pretty much identical. Seats are identical. Obviously in the Pro R, the rear seats need to come out to access that CVT cover in case you were doing a belt change or clutching changes. Now we'll step to the back. All right, now back here is where the major differences lie between the Pro R and the Turbo R. Of course, everybody knows about the 4-cylinder engine. It gives 225 horsepower. We're not exactly sure at what RPM yet, but we'll figure that out for sure. At the very back end of the car, they look similar kind of at a glance. The radius rods look the same length, all that, but the radius rod mounting area is quite a bit different on the Pro R. You'll see, for one, is it's exposed. It's not covered up with the heat shield or that exhaust cover, but the frame is quite a bit larger back there. And you'll also notice that the frame rail below the engine, it's 2 inches all the way back, where the Turbo R is also 2 inches, but a Pro XP steps down from a 2-inch bottom frame rail to an 1.5 inch bottom frame rail. Slightly different and definitely stronger. That's probably where some of the weight comes from. And then we noticed these little hooks on the rear. There's some on the front too. We're going to use them as tie-down hooks. They might have been there for construction of the chassis or painting or something, but they look like they're strong enough to be used as tow hooks. The turbocharged 2-cylinder does 181 horsepower. We calculated the power to weight ratio, and it's actually not that different. On the Turbo R, the engine is pushing 12 pounds per horsepower. On the Pro R, the engine is pushing 10.5 pounds per horsepower. So, I mean, it's, you know, 1.5 horsepower difference per pound. So in case you want to know the weight, the Pro R is 2,365 pounds. The Turbo R is 2,169 pounds, 196 pound difference. So 200 pounds heavier with a slightly longer wheelbase and a much larger powertrain. What's totally different is the way the drivetrain and the powertrain are located in the chassis. That rear differential is huge. I mean, it looks like a truck rear end, and it's divorced from the engine or the transmission, which in the Turbo R and all other XPs, the transmission and rear diff is all one unit. In the Pro R, it's a separate unit, you know, which would make for easier replacement and things like that, but hopefully you don't have to replace them, and hopefully Polaris made it strong enough where you don't have to mess with that. The cargo boxes are slightly different. The Pro R has a shallower cargo area, and it's lined with a sort of probably a heat shielding. It's kind of an anti-slip surface too. The Turbo R has a pretty much identical cargo tray as the Pro XP. And you'll notice the trailing arm is longer on the Pro R. The whole chassis behind the rear seats is 8 inches longer than the Turbo R, giving it an overall length of 165 inches, which again is 8 inches longer than the Turbo R and 1 inch longer than a Can-Am 4-seater, Can-Am X3 4-seater. We'll finish it off with the price. The Pro R 4-seater starts at $36,000. That's for the base model. And the RZR Turbo R starts at $30,000 for the base model 4-seater. All right, what a fun day. We just put 75 miles on the new Pro R and the Turbo R. Trying to figure out the differences. Obviously, you know, we know the motor on the Pro R has a lot more horsepower, but it actually translated into a lot more torque, and really would get off the line good. Like in the drag races, no question. The turbo was left about 3 car lengths back. In the dunes, there was always power in reserve on the Pro R, which was, you know, great for Dumont, where the dunes are really steep and you could be halfway up a dune and want to give it a little more throttle, and it was always there. You always had the extra power to get up the dune a little faster than the turbo car. Versus a regular XP, they were both much more stable, which was nice. Transitioning over the dunes and things like that, and side hilling, you felt a little more secure. Top speed, we were kind of surprised. They were both limited to 88 miles an hour. You know, we couldn't go over 88 in either car. The Pro R definitely got there quicker. You know, the extra length and extra weight kind of was a little hindrance in the dunes on the Pro R. The back end would kind of slide out from under you a little bit when side hilling, and then it was a little skatey, and it wasn't as stable in the hard packed or even the sand washes. We definitely like the nimbleness of the Turbo R over the Pro R in the tighter stuff, obviously. The diff lock, I don't know, we're always been a pretty decent fan of the Polaris diff lock. It's, you know, it works fine most of the time. The new diff lock in the Pro R didn't really seem, you know, we didn't have any rock crawling sections to really put it to the test, but it's there. It's nice to know it's there for sure. But I mean, we sound like a broken record, but the best thing on that car, or both of those cars, was the ride command, and we were able to do 75 miles out of each other's dust and find great trails and great destinations like this. So, you know, we definitely can't complain. It's the best part of any Polaris vehicle. And if we were going to choose one of these to buy, we would probably choose the Turbo R because of its wheelbase. It's about perfect. If we were given a choice to buy a 2-seat Pro R or a 4-seat Pro R, we'd probably lean towards the 2-seater, you know, unless we were carrying more passengers, obviously. They're both great cars. Again, the Pro R is long, fast, a little heavy, a little big, but still a fun new car. We're glad Polaris came out with it. It's definitely going to be a contender if any of its competitors come up with something. But as for the Turbo R as a Turbo S replacement, we love it. Polaris hit a home run with that thing, and I'm sure dealers are going to have trouble keeping them in stock.